WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. What do I have? I have a sample. Now, this is not something that is available over here in Germany, let alone in Europe at the moment. Nulu. Now, Nulu is a brand made by Prohibition Craft Spirits. This summer I was in Louisville, Kentucky, and spent about 5 days visiting all of the different distilleries that we import now over to Germany. Nulu is not one of them, not yet, sorry. And what we do is at the moment, we're only importing things from distilleries that actually produce themselves and also can have enough product to send over to Europe. So Nulu, I better said Prohibition Craft Spirits, our Airbnb was literally across the road. So I went over the one evening, and I looked at the different times on the door the day before when they had a tour, and I rang the doorbell and no one was there. So the tour was supposed to start in 10 minutes. No one was there. So I went over to the bar, just right beside it. Oh, I'm so sorry. No one had actually signed up for the tour today. Here, very nice, very, 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 very generous. They gave me a free tour for the next day. So the next day I was there on time, did the tour with a couple other people at Nulu. The very, very fascinating part about Nulu was the fact that they were basically here, I'm going to say, pushing their Baxter rum after the tour, their Phoenix Hill vodka, their Highlands gin. I don't know how they get away with that name, by the way. And Nulu Reposado, which is from agave, blue agave, but it's born in Mexico and raised in Kentucky. And of course, there was a possibility to try a Nulu single barrel proof bourbon. So, but there was so many other things they do there. And we went through the tour. It's like a little type of, it looks like the museum of a library. There's little walls and there's little things in the pictures and you can read a little bit. It wasn't the most professional place in the world to be. And then at the very, very end, we actually got to go to a look over the big, an area that had pot stills. They were dusty, and there were a lot of things in front of them. And you saw about 10 barrels high and about 20 barrels wide this rack house, where they had, 200 barrels, maybe. And that's Nulu. Because Prohibition Craft Spirits, Nulu is basically an independent bottler for whiskey. They do say that they're waiting for their own whiskey to become mature, but I cannot personally imagine that the amount of barrels that they have sold already, that they will have ever made enough barrels to meet that demand. It looks like they're going to be a sourcer of whiskeys for quite some time. Founded and president is Keith Hazelbaker. So in 2016. Back in 2016, apparently, you could still buy barrels from MGP, either directly from MGP or through a broker. Now, this is 7-year-old. I like how they actually say New Oak Barrel. What else in America? Come on. This is barrel 122. This is 62.1% ABV. This is Whiskybase number 220547. And it's 7-year-old MGP juice. Yeah. So, Ross and Squibb Distillery makes some very, very fine stuff. There is no when, if, or buts about that. What I personally did not know about MGP back then, so we go back to the history. Basically, the company that bought MGP, a financial blah, 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 went bankrupt. The government put that a little bit into administration before MGP bought that. And before that, we had actually had another problem that wow, Jason. So the name of the company that went into Hollywood films basically broke the bank and went bankrupt. Wow. ability to remember names sometimes scares me. Seagram's, of course, everyone's screaming at me. Seagram's, they went into the entertainment industry for billions and billions and basically went bankrupt. And then the MGP distillery, back then the Seagram's distillery in Lawrenceville, Indiana, was then for sale as well. Good job. And the U.S. government basically said, okay, good, the newly formed Diageo keeps the brands, and the Pernod Ricard keeps the distillery, because we do not want a monopoly. So that created basically the first time in the U.S. history that we had a contract distiller at this size, all right, for whiskey, for bourbon, for rye. And so Pernod Ricard ran that company for a couple of years, and their biggest customer was Diageo. And that's why they were making, and then other people were buying, because back then Pernod Ricard did not have a real brand for their whiskeys, of American whiskeys in the United States. That, of course, is all now changed, and if I remember correctly, Jefferson's now going to get their own distillery, Pernod Ricard, right? All right, so what am I going to compare this with? I just decided to go for something that I had that was from Kentucky. Elijah Craig Small Batch Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey with 65.7%. So this is batch C918. So I really do love the bottle of wow. That's what I call affectionately the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Bottle to Wow. That's a shout out to Scott and Bart at the Scotch Test Dummies that have been doing it a few years longer than I have. It really is great to see how many new YouTube or whiskey tube channels have come to the flock. All right, so the color, just do the color. So you can see a major difference in color, 12 years, 7 years. And here we have the stone floors and the brick walls compared to a rick house made out of wood. So on the nose, this has more of a herbal. It has more umami. It's a little bit more, it's less sweet. It's not a powder sugar sweet, it's like a honey sweet. Do you know Turkish Delight? A little bit like that, a little bit like a fig sweetness. I like that. I like good old MGP cask strength bourbon. We don't get much of it over here. MGP basically ran out. They were so successful that they sold basically all of their stock, more or less. Some brokers have some don't. Now, when you actually go to MGP and say, hey, I would like 100 barrels, they're like, no, sorry. The minimum order is at 1,000 barrels now. That you can actually go there and they'll do their own mash bill. If you go to Bardstown Bourbon Company, they might do a smaller order, but even there, I'm not up to date at the moment. It used to be Green River, but Green River was bought by Bardstown Bourbon Company. It's really amazing the dynamic at the moment of the whiskey distillery scene in the U.S., especially the big players out there. And in comparison, well, it's not really the same. In Scotland, we have to wait the 3 years to release a product, and usually in America, with our straights, we don't want to have an age statement on there. The big boys wait for 4 years often. And so, I like this. This is sweeter. This has more of but it also has more of a pine pitch moment going on here. I normally I don't really get the pine moment in there unless I compare it to something totally different. On the nose, I still like this. This has a little bit more of an alcohol bite, 62.1%. Nothing. But it does have a little bit more of a tobacco moment going on here. I like. I don't know, did you have the chance in the last, like a week ago, depends on when the video comes out, Fred Minnick did his 100 best American whiskeys for 2022. It was scary to see how efficient he wrote down the tasting notes for all 100 samples that he did in a row. Of course, he spit. Of those 100, he tried 3, 5, I don't think even 8 have ever made it over here to Europe. Those were some very exclusive whiskeys that are allocated and very difficult to find, and so on and so on. And they are usually over here much, much later. So even this bottle was bought in, there's two shops at the moment in the UK and the US that send to Germany that we as the bourbon community over Germany use. One is in San Francisco, one is in New York City. And to buy a package of 6 bottles of whiskey, we're often paying $120 plus to have it sent on shipping. All right, so that's like $20 per bottle more. If we have only 4 bottles, it's $108. So it's just like, well, and if we do more than 6, it's the second package is bigger, it costs more. So 6 seems to be exactly the right size there. All right, let's try the Nulu versus the Elijah Craig bottle of Wow. Like. Hmm. 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 It's kind of a little bit of usually when I think of herbal, I'm thinking more of a herbal tea. Here I have more of a I have I have a little bit of allspice. I have a little bit of the clove. I have a little bit of the cinnamon, but I'm going also more to the sage and to the thyme and the rosemary. That's I really like. A little bit more, not the Italian type of spices, but a little bit of the British type of spices. We can talk about how if the British people lost their spice rack along the way or whatever, but those are stereotypes that I don't want to talk about too much here. A little bit of tobacco leaf, a little bit more of a darker caramel type of toffee moment going on there. It's not overly sweet, which I think many people would like. Some people, especially in Germany, do not like sweet. I do know that I have a sweet tooth, and this is less than the sweetness that I often have with a good whiskey. There's a little bit of oak on there. It's not too much. There's no astringency going on here. Let's see what the Elijah Craig 12-year-old does for me. Cheers. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Um, Going back to Fred Minnick and his 100 best American whiskeys, he put single malts, rye, bourbons, everything together. To be very honest, this is where I take this and I go, oh, wow. And I do this and I go, oh, good. So this is for me a B- whiskey, and this is a B+ whiskey. And that's the difference between an outstanding whiskey. I think his videos were always 94s, 95s, 93s. He had to have a 93 to put it actually in the top 25. And he did find in some rounds, he had 10 rounds of 10 each. There were like 1. And then other rounds are like 4 or even 5. He's like, this is fantastic. Oh, this is even more fantastic. This is excellent. And so on. And then otherwise, it was a little bit of weak round. And this would have been a contender for me. I don't know if it would have made it in the top 25 for Fred, the C918, but he only did the bottles from 2022. What I didn't do in my German video that I like to do in my English video is just put a little bit of water in here. See how this changes, develops. We'll put a couple little drops in there and then dilute it down to about 55. And see how it develops. Question of the day. What bottles, what brands can you recommend with older 6+ years of MGP juice that we can actually buy? All right, so not over in Germany I mean buy, but in America I mean buy. So which ones from America that have good 6+ year MGP juice bourbon can you recommend? Today in my whiskey Bourbon Lovers Germany is what one of the groups are called. They started talking about the Michter's 10. It actually has hit the shelves over here in Germany. And 220 euros, the price plus. And it's just like, it's good, but it's not worth 220. This is about 75. Over here we paid about, by shipping, 20 euros on top. 19% we have to pay for sales tax. Before that, we have to pay actual. Sorry, first you pay alcohol tax. So for 62% with 0.75 liters, this is 13. So it's about eight. Let's call it $8 for the bottle for that. Then you pay on the bottle price and the alcohol tax. You pay 19% import tax on top of that. So our VAT, everything in Germany has 19% basically. Food doesn't, but this is not food. This is a luxury product. And then on top of that, you have the shipping price. So we're about 100 and whatever, 110, 130 euros for this bottle over here. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a little bit of a weirdness going on there. The very, very first time I did this, and I had the image in my head, the association, turkey gravy. And then I started thinking about, why am I thinking about turkey gravy? I love putting sage on my turkey. And so the sage flavor, that sage herbalness, was here for me in that whiskey. Good? Yes. Great? Eh. All right, so value for money for us over here in Germany, D. But the taste itself is a B minus. This is good stuff. This is better. This is good. All right, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for liking. Question of the day was which brands at the moment have good or even the best 6-year plus MGP juice? What can you recommend, and what should we be looking out for? Thanks for watching. Whiskey Jason here. All the best. Tell others. Bye bye.